She felt his gaze drop to her mouth, then jerk back to her eyes. "I shouldn't," he murmured. "Then don't," she whispered, though her body betrayed the protest by swaying closer. His phone buzzed, shattering the silence. He released her and stood, jaw rigid, answering. She caught fragments, Matteo's voice, words like extraction, leak, hospital. Dante's replies were curt. He ended the call and turned to her, composure back in place. "Stay here tonight," he said, "please." She nodded, too drained to resist. As he left to deal with aftermath, she curled on the sofa beneath her grandmother's quilt, still smelling faintly of home. She wasn't sure when exhaustion dragged her under. Hours later, she woke to piano notes drifting through the penthouse, slow minor chords haunting the corridor. Moonlight pooled on marble as she followed the music, pulse quickening with each step. Dante left Elena sleeping beneath the faded quilt and headed for the floor below, where his private office occupied half the level. Glass walls afforded a stark view of the midnight river, but tonight the blinds were drawn. Matteo waited inside, jacket shed, tie loosened, a laptop open on the steel desk. Two other men, Aldo and Ren, stood off to one side, tension telegraphed in the set of their shoulders. The air carried the faint smell of cordite, a reminder of the afternoon's gunfire that even the building's sophisticated ventilation couldn't erase. Matteo looked up as Dante entered. "The bodies have been handled. The site is clean. No civilian video surfaced." "Good," Dante said, voice softer than the rage simmering beneath. He closed the door with deliberate calm. "Tell me about the leak." Matteo turned the laptop, displaying security stills from Memorial staff parking deck. A young respiratory therapist, Brian Hale, badge hanging askew, handed a slim envelope to a courier in a black hoodie. Timestamp: last night 22:30. The next still showed the courier entering a bar known to shelter Roncado foot soldiers. "Hale isn't on payroll," Matteo said, "but he's got gambling debts, a lot of them. We cross-checked. 10,000 owed to Rico Scarpelli, Gianni's collector. Hale started pulling employee rosters 3 weeks ago. He accessed Elena's records yesterday." Dante folded his arms. The marble floor felt colder beneath his shoes than he remembered. "You detained him?" "Quietly, he's in the interview room downstairs, sweating." Dante nodded, gaze flicking to Aldo. "Were you at the shootout?" Aldo stiffened. "Yes, boss." "Any sign the Roncados knew Elena would be there today?" "Unsure, but they rammed the van only after Matteo's sedan was boxed in. Could be coincidence. Could be Hale fed them her errands." Dante considered. Coincidence never echoed this precisely in his universe. Somebody had threaded the needle, his hands curled into fists, but he forced them flat on the desk. Elena's wide eyes as she nearly pulled a trigger haunted him. She shouldn't shoulder the burden of killing to survive him. He turned to Ren. "What about inside our own walls?" Ren checked his notes. One driver unaccounted for during the ambush window. Thomas Greco, phone off, GPS disabled, reappeared after the shooting claiming tire trouble. His story stinks. "Bring him in," Dante said. "No bruises where clothes won't cover." "That's subtle?" Ren asked. The faintest spark of humor surfaced. Dark, always on the edge of violence. Dante's stare snuffed it. "Subtle doesn't mean painless." Ren dipped his head and slipped out. Aldo followed. Matteo closed the laptop and leaned back. Exhaustion carved hollows under his eyes. "What now?" "Now we harden every layer." Dante paced behind the desk. "Triple teams on Elena, but invisible. If she senses them, you failed." "I'll rotate point men." Matteo paused. She held the gun steady, Dante. She was ready. The sentence scraped across Dante's nerves. He pictured Elena's slim hands clutching cold metal, her heartbeat racing because he'd placed her in crosshairs. He wanted to smash something just to feel it break, but he kept pacing. "She shouldn't have been forced to choose," he said finally. "That ends." Matteo studied him. "You're trembling." Dante stopped, glanced at his hands. Indeed, fine tremors danced along tendons. He flexed them open and closed. Adrenaline, he muttered. Or fear. The words settled heavy. Dante's whole life had been carved to avoid fear. He'd learned to greet death with practiced indifference. But the thought of losing Elena, of hearing her scream through a phone receiver, made his lungs constrict. He sat on the edge of the desk. I need the rat tonight. I'll handle it, Matteo promised. Use mercy if possible, Dante added, surprising himself. Hale's a fool, not a monster. Matteo raised a brow. Mercy? He gambled, Dante said, recalling the early days when he too had sought escape in risk and adrenaline. He'll repay with service if he still breathes. Matteo accepted the order, though his surprise lingered. And Greco? Greco chose betrayal, that's different. The conversation dropped into silence. Dante felt tension coil inside him, a serpent of need and rage interlaced. He wanted to see Elena, to assure himself she still breathed. But he also wanted to shield her from the man he became when rage commanded him. He stood. Finish here, I'll be upstairs. Matteo nodded, already dialing into the encrypted line. Dante took the elevator alone. The mirrored panel reflected a man he barely recognized. Tie askew, eyes red-veined, stubble shading his jaw. Raw edges showed through the control. When the doors opened, low piano notes floated down the corridor, haunting, tentative. He followed them to his music room but paused outside, unseen. Elena sat at the bench, back straight, hands trembling above the ivory keys. She pressed a single note again and again, testing its resonance. Then she tried a short melody, halting, uncertain. Every wrong sound tightened her shoulders. Dante listened, heart aching. He'd left the lid open, intending to play himself, but her presence here, alone, was both violation and miracle. He stepped inside softly. She jolted, pulling her hands back. I'm sorry, she whispered. I couldn't sleep. You're welcome to play. He approached but kept distance, as one might approach a skittish deer in twilight. I didn't know you could. I can't. I took lessons until middle school. Then life got busy. She touched a minor chord. Pianos were for people with fewer bills. He eased onto the opposite end of the bench, leaving space between. The keys don't judge. They sound terrible under my fingers, she said, forced humor cracking. They sound honest, he replied. Perfection is for liars. She glanced at him, startled into a small smile. He nodded to the keys. Play what you remember. After a moment, she attempted a childhood lullaby. Wrong notes scattered like spilled beads. Dante listened, fingers itching to guide her, but he folded them in his lap. When the melody fizzled, he reached out and added the next chord where she faltered. The sound blended warm and rich. Here, he said, voice hushed. He leaned in, his hand brushing hers as he positioned her fingers. The contact sparked heat up his arm. He heard her breath catch. Together they played the phrase correctly. Something fragile formed in that harmony. Trust, perhaps, or the beginning of it. She turned toward him, and their faces hovered inches apart. Moonlight spilled through tall windows, catching the silver in her eyes. Dante felt drawn, gravity stronger than sense, to kiss her. His heartbeat thundered, drowning out every warning. Her gaze dropped to his lips, then flicked back to his eyes. He leaned forward, just enough for her to feel the intention, then froze, waiting. If she tilted up even a fraction, he would close the distance, but she remained still, breath coming fast. I should go, she whispered, voice unsteady. He forced himself back, muscles protesting. Sleep, Elena. She rose, arms wrapped around herself. At the door she paused. Thank you for not taking what I'm not ready to give. The restraint cost him more than she could know. He inclined his head. Thank you for trusting me to hold back. She left. Dante exhaled, tension coiling and receding. The piano seemed to vibrate with desire denied. He closed the lid gently, then stood at the window. Far below, the city shimmered indifferent. Somewhere in its sprawl, Gianni sharpened knives, and someone whispered Elena's name into ears willing to trade blood for cash. Dante's reflection merged with the night. A man glimpsing redemption in fragile hands. He touched the glass. "I will not break you," he vowed, his breath fogging the pain. "But I will break anyone who tries." Behind him, the quiet clink of tools signaled Matteo's return. Dante turned. Matteo's jacket now bore fresh creases, knuckles reddened. "Greco?" Dante asked. "We have him." Hale confessed. "Greco leaked your movements to the Roncados for cash, said protective duty bored him." Matteo offered a phone. Audio file. Dante listened to Greco's trembling confession. Thought a little side money wouldn't hurt. Didn't know it'd go this far. Dante deleted the file, jaw tight. "Elena can never learn my men endangered her." "She won't." Matteo's tone held steel. "Judgment?" Dante glanced toward the corridor where Elena had gone. Once, he'd have ordered execution without pause. Now, he pictured her reaction if she discovered another corpse in her name. "Greco lives," Dante said, the words foreign in his mouth. "Strip him of rank. Debt service in the slums till he earns redemption or dies by someone else's blade." Matteo's eyebrows rose. "Mercy twice in one night, the men will talk." "Let them." Dante stepped away, tired beyond reason. "I'm carving a different kingdom." Matteo nodded, something like respect flickering. "Understood." He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth," Hale begged forgiveness. "He thought you were a myth." "He'll preach reality now," Dante murmured. When the office door shut, Dante allowed himself one tremor of weary relief. He imagined Elena under that quilt, steady breathing, unaware of the violent ripples around her. He needed her safe more than he needed his vengeance. For the first time in his life, fear and desire were welded together, forging a purpose he neither expected nor welcomed. But it was his now. He moved to the piano again, lifted the lid, and began to play a quiet piece his mother used to hum while folding laundry in the old apartment above their first restaurant. Each note threaded new vows into the night, pledges spilled in music instead of blood. Somewhere down the hall, Elena sighed in her sleep, and Dante let the sound settle in his bones, proof that she was alive, inside his walls, under his reluctant mercy. Moonlight eventually surrendered to an ashen dawn, the skyline blooming in faint peach as Elena drifted awake on the sofa. Her grandmother's quilt lay askew, one edge sliding to the floor. She pushed upright, sore from sleeping, curled and half-dressed. Every pop of her spine reminded her that yesterday's terror hadn't been a nightmare, but an ugly, breathing thing that might still lurk outside the tower's glass. The loft around her was still. Somewhere distant, a coffee grinder whirred, then fell silent. She padded toward the kitchen, following the earthy scent. Dante stood barefoot at the counter, wearing charcoal sweats and a plain black t-shirt that made him look less like a kingpin and more like a sleepless student. He poured steaming espresso into 2 small cups, then glanced up. The edges of his eyes looked bruised, but relief softened them when they settled on her. "I didn't mean to wake you," he murmured. "You didn't." Her voice rasped. She cleared it. "I haven't decided whether I'm an early riser now, or I just never really sleep." He slid 1 cup across the island. "Try to sleep. Even lions need rest." She accepted the espresso, inhaling steam. "Lions rarely apologize either." A wry twist touched his mouth. "Then consider me a defective one." She sipped. "Yesterday." He raised a hand. "Was my fault. I put you on a road without enough intel. That won't repeat." She studied him over the rim. "You said you'd disarm more cameras, did you?" "Yes, only the external perimeters remain active." He tilted his head, inviting trust. "If you want them all dark, say so. I'll blind myself and take my chances." "No," The word left her lips before she'd weighed it. The image of the black van, guns flashing, crowded in. She swallowed. External is fine. He nodded as though acknowledging a treaty. Once the threat eases, I'll take you to see Luca. He's asking daily. Her chest warmed. I'd like that. An easy silence followed, the kind that lives between two people too tired for pretense. She glanced toward the piano room, remembering the near kiss, the hum of tension vibrating like struck strings. He followed her gaze, a faint flush creeping up his neck, but he didn't mention it. I should shower, pack for the day, she said. Matteo can drive you back to Memorial if you insist on a shift. His jaw tightened at the thought. Or you can stay, read, breathe. Sitting still never helped my nerves. She finished her espresso. Shift starts at 11. He gave a curt nod, an uneasy compromise for both. You'll have eyes on you. She didn't argue. They parted. She for the guest suite, he for the maze of his morning responsibilities. Under the spray of hot water, she watched pale rinse swirl down the drain and wondered if life would ever again feel unremarkable. Probably not. But maybe she could carve a notch of normal inside the chaos. By 9, Matteo waited in the foyer, keys in hand. They exchanged a silent greeting. Dante was nowhere in sight. A gift or a punishment, she couldn't tell. As the sedan eased into city traffic, Elena replayed the events that altered her life in just 10 days and tried to imagine describing them to Sophie over post-shift fries. She doubted language existed for it. Matteo pulled into the staff garage's upper level, selecting a spot beneath a security camera. 2 of Dante's men leaned against a concrete pillar disguised as janitors. Elena recognized them only by the stillness in their posture. She stepped out, duffel slung over one shoulder. I'll be waiting at the south exit, Matteo said quietly. Don't vary your route. I'm a nurse, not a spy. Today, be both. He offered a thin smile, then pulled away. Inside, fluorescent lights cast their usual harsh glow. The smell of antiseptic and chart paper felt like returning oxygen. Sophie caught Elena near the lockers, worry knitting her brow. You don't answer texts, and then you stroll in like a ghost. What's happening? Elena forced a small smile. Bad family stuff, I'll explain when I can. Sophie's gaze dropped to Elena's duffel, now sporting a bullet scuff. She frowned but accepted the non-answer. You're on triage with me for 6. Mr. Delgado resprained his pride skating with grandkids. Normalcy tugged at Elena like a tired hug. She changed into scrubs, clipped on her badge, and breathed. Elsewhere in the hospital, the night shift bled into day shift. Staff bustled, carts squeaked, monitors chimed. At a far stairwell, Carla Sutton, a billing clerk notorious for side hustles, checked her watch. 10:30, time to deliver. She descended to the underground service dock, clutching a small manila envelope. Rainwater dripped from the loading door where a slim man in a charcoal suit waited. Franco, lieutenant to Gianni Roncato. He flicked a cigarette into a puddle as Carla approached. You said double if it's confirmed, she whispered. Franco showed a row of ivory teeth. Double if it's good. He extended a gloved hand. Carla placed the envelope there, glancing around the cavernous bay. No cameras. She'd made sure of that. Franco cracked the seal, sliding out 2 sheets, Elena Carter's personnel file, and a photocopy of her driver's license. Address, photo, everything. A tremor of excitement rippled through him. He tucked the goods into his coat and produced a fat roll of 20s. Carla reached greedily, but he held it back. Pleasure doing business, he said. You hear of schedule changes, you call the number. She nodded, pocketing the cash. Footsteps echoed near the ramp. Franco slipped into shadow, vanishing between pallets of medical supplies. Carla smoothed her scrubs and hurried up the stairs, telling herself luxuries required risk. Outside, Franco climbed into a dark sedan and dialed. Boss, we have a name and an address. Gianni's gravel voice crackled over the line. Good. Tonight we finish what street bullets couldn't. Franco allowed himself a grim smile. Marino's angel will fall. He ended the call, unaware of the small camera tucked inside a corroded conduit above the dock door, its tiny lens capturing every word. 2 miles away, a technician in Dante's command center watched the feed, blood draining from his face. He hit speed dial. Matteo's phone buzzed as he leaned against the south lot railing, scanning for Elena. One glance at the feed and his pulse spiked. He flicked to Dante's contact. "Leak confirmed," he said. "They have her name and address. Tonight." Dante's reply was a single command: lockdown. Matteo pocketed the phone, then straightened as Elena exited the sliding doors, fatigue etched across her features. He offered a reassuring nod but felt dread coil inside. Tonight's moon would rise over sharpened knives, and only one wrong breath stood between protection and tragedy. The first warning was Matteo's voice, low and urgent, traveling through the penthouse like a tremor. Elena paused halfway down the hall, fingers wrapped around a mug of chamomile she'd made to quiet her nerves. Matteo's words filtered from Dante's office, clipped and fast. Surveillance flags, multiple heat signatures, sub-basement breach. She crept closer, every heartbeat a hammer against her ribs. Dante's reply came, quieter but edged with steel. "How long?" 7, maybe 8 minutes, service elevator only. Ground lobby secure, but they bypassed 2 checkpoints. "Johnny's last hand." Dante's sigh sounded like a blade, leaving its sheath. "Lock the penthouse. Trigger silent evac routes for staff." Elena set her mug on a console, the porcelain clinking far too loud. The men turned. Anxiety flared in Matteo's gray eyes. Dante's expression shuddered, but not before she saw naked fear. "What's happening?" she demanded. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, hands settling gently on her shoulders. "Trouble downstairs. Nothing you haven't already survived. Don't downplay this, you're scared." She pushed past him into the office where blueprints glowed across a wall screen, red dots climbing a shaft toward their floor. "They're coming here." Matteo keyed commands, internal doors grinding shut, somewhere deep in the building. "We can hold them, boss. Reinforced glass, 20 armed guards on standby." "You said 7 minutes," Dante reminded, voice flat. "Johnny won't waste bullets on guards. He'll go for civilians, create leverage." Elena stepped between them. "I'm not hiding in a closet while people bleed for me." Dante's jaw flexed. "You'll stay alive, that's all that matters." Her pulse roared. "If I'm cowering, Luca's angel becomes a ghost, I'd rather fight." The words stunned even her, but conviction steadied her spine. Dante searched her face, then opened a cabinet concealed behind a painting, a pistol in a velvet recess, sleek and matte black. He racked the slide, checked the chamber, then offered it, butt first. "Safety here. Squeeze steady. Aim center mass." She accepted the weight, familiar now, yet no less frightening. "You taught me once already." "I prayed you'd never use it." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "Listen carefully. If they breach this floor, Matteo and I will funnel them away from you. And if someone slips through, you shoot." Raw honesty burned in his eyes. "Because I won't survive losing you." Sirens wailed faintly somewhere below. Interior alarms muted for guests. Matteo activated security panels. Steel shutters descended across floor-to-ceiling windows, turning dawn light into cold slits. Dante strapped a second gun at his hip and handed another to Matteo. Footsteps pounded in the service stairwell, a dull, rhythmic boom. Dante kissed Elena's forehead, lingered. Closet opposite the piano room, bulletproof door, panic comms. She shook her head. "I stay visible, they want leverage, remember?" He opened his mouth, then saw the resolve set in her posture and, with visible pain, nodded. "Stay close to inner walls. No heroics." The first explosion rattled glass, an elevator door blown off its track. Matteo sprinted toward the foyer. Dante followed, motioning 2 guards into flanking positions. Elena forced herself toward the library alcove, Gun raised the way Dante taught. Arms out, elbows soft, finger resting beside the trigger guard. Her breath came fast but controlled. Counting in, counting out, just like calming a code blue patient. Automatic fire echoed down the corridor, brittle and metallic. She flinched, flattened behind a marble column. Adrenaline sharpened every sound. Shell casings pinging tile. Curses in Italian. The muffled thud of a body hitting floor. Her mind supplied faces to the violence, Matteo's calm focus, Dante's silver dark gaze. Glass shattered. Dust billowed. She pivoted toward the noise. A figure burst through the smoke. Franco. He wore body armor, eyes wild and intent. He spotted her instantly, lips peeling back in a grin. "No more hiding, pretty nurse." She aimed. He lunged, knocking her wrist. The shot scorched the ceiling. Pain jolted her arm. He grabbed her throat, forcing her against a bookshelf, gun barrel digging into her ribs. "You're costing us a fortune," he hissed. She gasped, vision narrowing. Fear flashed, then anger. She kneed him hard in the groin. His grip loosened. She slammed her forehead into his nose. Cartilage crunched. He howled, staggering back. She raised the pistol with both hands, sighted his shoulder, and fired. The recoil slammed her palms. Franco spun, blood spraying from his upper arm. He fumbled for his weapon, but she shouted, "Drop it!" Her voice cracked but carried authority born of trauma bays and triage tents. He hesitated. Then Dante's silhouette filled the doorway, pistol leveled. 2 shots thudded into Franco's vest, knocking him flat. A third punched through his thigh. Franco screamed, rolling, weapon skittering away. Silence crashed down, abrupt and ringing. Dante strode forward, eyes murderous. Elena's gun trembled in her grasp. He crouched, checked Franco's pulse, then glanced up at her. "You okay?" She nodded, throat raw. I'm fine." Matteo's voice crackled over comms. Floor secure. Survivor subdued. Dante rose, holstering his pistol before gently prying hers from stiff fingers. He set it on a shelf, then pulled her into his arms. She sagged against him, adrenaline draining, tears stinging unbidden. "It's over," he whispered, pressing his cheek to her hair. "You did everything right." Franco groaned. Dante turned her away, shielding her from the sight. More guards arrived, zip-tying the wounded intruder. Matteo entered. Blood splattered on his sleeve, but none of it his. He nodded grimly. "Gianni's down 2 captains, the rest retreated." Dante kept his arm wrapped around Elena. "Have medical treat him, then lock him where he can feel the pain." Franco spat blood, glaring up. "You'll lose everything for her." Dante's gaze chilled. "I'd burn everything for her." Franco laughed raggedly. "She'll drown in your fire." Dante didn't answer. He simply turned, guiding Elena through debris-littered hallways to the master suite. Once the door shut, the penthouse felt eerily still. Dust motes drifted in slanted light, settling on shattered frames and overturned furniture. Elena's legs buckled. She slid to the floor, back against the wall. The gunshot echoed in her bones long after silence claimed the room. Dante knelt, cradling her hands. They shook violently. He pressed them to his lips. "I should never have put a weapon in them. If you hadn't, I'd be dead." She managed a shaky inhale. Or worse. He examined her neck where bruises bloomed from Franco's fingers, eyes darkening with self-loathing. "I failed. You fought for me." Tears welled hot. "You believed I could fight too." Footsteps approached, Matteo again, voice softer now. "Franco's stable. Police en route for cleanup." Dante nodded. "Good. Seal the floor. No reporters." Matteo's gaze swept Elena, respectful. "Ambulance for her?" "I'm fine," she said, surprising them both with the steadiness. "Just need water." Matteo departed. Dante helped her stand. guiding her to the ensuite where he gently cleaned a cut on her forearm with antiseptic. His hands, usually so sure, trembled. "I've spilled oceans of blood," he murmured, dabbing softly. "But seeing yours, never again." She laid her hand over his. "Then we keep each other alive." He looked up, vulnerability naked in his eyes. "Who am I when no one's watching?" "Stay," she whispered. "Let's find out together." Dante wrapped a soft blanket around Elena's shoulders before leading her through the quiet halls toward the hidden freight elevator that rose directly to the roof. Every step echoed with the memory of gunshots, but the elevator's hum eased some of the noise inside her head. When the door slid open, a rush of cool night air greeted them, carrying a scent of wet stone and ozone. The city below flickered with rotating blue lights where emergency vehicles still crawled along the avenues, but up here the sky stretched wide and mercifully clear. A crescent moon balanced on the skyline like a silver smile, unconcerned, timeless. Elena breathed deeply, letting the cold sting her lungs. Dante stayed close but gave her space, leaning his forearms on the parapet, head bowed as if he could press his thoughts into the concrete. She watched his shoulders rise and fall with deliberate control. In the city's glow, his profile looked carved from something ancient, more myth than man. But when he turned, his eyes were all too human, red-rimmed, glassy with the fear he would never show anyone else. "I brought you up here to prove the world still exists," he said, voice low. "Sometimes I forget it does." Elena joined him at the ledge, blanket tugged tight around her. "You live 30 floors above everyone. It must be easy to think life is only what fits inside the walls you build." "Walls are simpler than people," he admitted. "They don't bleed when they're breached." She studied his hands. They shook faintly against the stone, smudged with dried blood and ash. "How badly are you hurt?" "Surface wounds. Matteo fussed over them on the way up. I healed faster before I met you." His attempt at humor broke on a rough exhale. "Now every bruise reminds me it could have been you." Elena brushed her fingers over his knuckles. "I hurt too, inside. But I'd rather hurt beside someone who cares than heal alone." He closed his eyes. "I care more than I should, more than I know how to handle." "Then tell me something real, something you've never said under a roof full of cameras." Dante stared at her, uncertain. The city wind whipped his hair across his forehead. After a long moment he spoke, barely above a whisper. "My mother used to sing while making breakfast. Songs from Sicily, careless melodies she learned from her grandmother. I forgot them after she died. This morning, when you were still asleep, I tried to hum one while I cleaned the kitchen. The notes were gone, but the memory of her voice came back. You brought that." Elena felt tears prick. "I lost someone too. Not a parent, but a patient I couldn't save. I thought if I worked harder, stayed longer, I could beat death. Tonight reminded me I can't. But I can choose how I live with the fear." He turned fully toward her, moonlight reflecting in his eyes. "How do you want to live with it?" "By facing it, not letting it own me." She let the blanket slip from her shoulders, stepping closer. "By deciding who's worth the risk." Dante's breath hitched. "You decide, and I follow." She lifted a hand to his chest where his heart thundered. "Tell me the truth. All of it." He covered her hand with his. "The truth is ugly. I took my first life at 15. The man threatened Luca, and I pulled the trigger before I learned how to shave. I still have nightmares where Luca is screaming for me and I can't fire fast enough." Elena flinched at the raw confession but didn't pull away. "And why tell me now?" "Because I've never asked forgiveness and never planned to." Tears welled, surprising him. "But when you look at me, I want to be more than what I did." She rose on her toes, pressing a soft kiss to the corner of his mouth. Just a breath of warmth. He froze, as if the gentleness stunned him more than violence ever could. She whispered, "Then show me." Dante's restraint snapped like dry bark. He cupped her face, brushing noses, lips hovering over hers. "I will break before I break you," he murmured. Elena closed the distance mouth to mouth, slow and exploring, tasting salt and adrenaline. The city disappeared, sirens faded. The universe narrowed to the slide of lips and the gulp of breath they shared. Dante's hands threaded into her hair, then fell to her waist, gliding down her hips as though mapping a prayer. She pressed against him, heat coiling low in her belly, fear melting into want. They broke apart only when the rooftop door banged open. Matteo stepped out, breath fogging. "Sorry," he said, embarrassed. "Medical team needs clearance to remove bodies. Also 2 news choppers hovering." Dante exhaled shakily. "Handle it. 10-minute hold, then release a statement. Blame Gianni's splinter cell. Keep Elena's name out of everything." "Already done." Matteo retreated, closing the door with a muted click. A fragile silence settled. Elena tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Is this what every morning will be like?" Dante smirked. "There won't always be bodies, but there will always be people who'd pay to see me fall. And me with you. That's what terrifies me." She slipped her fingers through his. "I decide, I stay." He brought her knuckles to his lips. "Then let's leave the dead to the night and give dawn something better." Hand in hand they descended to the master bedroom. Moonlight slanted through high windows, silvering the rumpled sheets Dante had never returned to after the fighting started. Elena paused beside the bed, heart hammering again. This time, not from fear. She faced him. "I want my life. All of it. Including the part that loves you." Dante swallowed. "Say it again." "I love you." Each word tasted like surrender and triumph combined. Color rushed to his face, vulnerability unmasked. "I love you, Elena. More than my oath. More than my name." She reached for the hem of her shirt, pulled it over her head. Cool air kissed her skin. Dante's breath left on a shudder. He raised trembling hands but waited. She guided his palms to her waist, then slid them up. He traced every inch like memorizing scripture. She unbuttoned his ruined shirt, revealing bruises, small cuts, the faded scar of an old bullet near his collarbone. She pressed a kiss there, whispering, "I'm not afraid of scars." He exhaled like a man stepping out of shadow. Gently he lifted her onto the bed, following, moving slowly as if afraid to wake from a dream. Their clothes pooled on the floor in soft whispers. Skin met skin, limbs tangling, breaths sinking. Dante's touch was reverent, charting her like unfamiliar stars, stopping each time her breath hitched to ask without words if she wanted more. She answered in sighs and nails tracing his spine, in the arch of her hips seeking every inch of him. When they finally joined, it was unhurried, a deep rolling tide that erased the echoes of gunfire. He whispered her name like apology and promise. She called him home. They rose together, crested, clung as trembling quiet settled. His heartbeat thundered beneath her ear. Her fingertips drew lazy circles on his chest. Minutes or lifetimes passed before she spoke. "Promise me I always get to choose." He brushed damp hair from her forehead. "Even if it kills me." She smiled, eyes stinging. "Then live. That's all I choose right now." He folded her into his arms, pulling the quilt over their cooling skin. They lay entwined, watching the first gray edge of dawn seep through curtains. Somewhere below, the city still churned, but inside these walls nothing pressed except the gentle rise and fall of their breaths. Warm light streamed through gauzy curtains, turning the bedroom's pale walls a soft gold. Elena awoke first, curled against Dante's chest, listening to his steady breathing. The quiet felt surreal after the storm of the night before. She traced the curve of his collarbone, marveling at the contrast of tenderness in a man whose name once invoked dread. He shifted, eyes fluttering open. For a few seconds neither spoke. They simply breathed the same air, marveling that they still could. "Morning," she whispered. He stroked her hair. If this is morning, I'm willing to stop hating dawn. She smiled, then pushed herself up, sheet pooling at her waist. We probably need to check the damage. Matteo's handling repairs. Dante's voice rumbled like distant thunder softened by clouds. He also confiscated every news drone within a 6-block radius. That must have been expensive, cheaper than letting reporters guess. He sat, wincing as stiff muscles protested. Elena glanced at the bruises blooming down his side. You need ice. You need breakfast. They compromised, shower first, separately only because the hot water stung his cuts. Dante returned from the bathroom in a white t-shirt and charcoal lounge pants, hair damp and curling slightly at the ends. Elena dressed in borrowed leggings and one of Dante's soft black button-downs that fell mid-thigh. She rolled the sleeves twice, inhaling laundry soap tinged with his scent. In the kitchen, Matteo had arranged an unlikely feast. Fruit, pastries, freshly scrambled eggs, and strong espresso that scented the air with bittersweet notes. He stepped back as they entered, relief flickering across his stoic features. You're both upright, he said. I'll alert the Vatican. Dante arched a brow. How many casualties? 3 Roncados dead, 2 captured. Our side, 4 guards with flesh wounds, no civilians. Matteo handed Dante a tablet. We've scrubbed security footage. Only 1 clip leaked. An anonymous social media post of flashing lights outside the building. No faces? Good. Dante scanned the report, then set the tablet down. And Gianni? Hiding in Marseille, according to our contacts. He's lost too many men to keep the war stateside. Elena sipped espresso, letting the bitter jolt chase away residual tremors. Matteo noticed her silence and softened his tone. Luca's discharge finalized this morning, he added. The clinic's motorcade will arrive here in 2 hours. Dante's eyes lit with relief before narrowing in caution. Security? Sealed route, decoy vehicles, no chatter on the usual channels. Elena's fork paused above her eggs. I should clean up before he sees me. No one needs to explain last night's bruises. It'll make him think you fought dragons, Matteo said, half-smile forming. He'll love it. Elena flushed. He nearly died. I'd rather he see something calm. She glanced at Dante. Does he know about us? Dante's jaw relaxed into the faintest smile. He knows I haven't been sleeping and assumes you're responsible for the cure. Matteo's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then turned toward the hall. I'll double-check vehicle staging. His exit left a hush only broken by cutlery tapping porcelain. Dante poured more coffee. You don't have to be perfect for Luca. He already worships you. Let's start with presentable. She dabbed his cheek with a napkin to remove a smear of syrup. He caught her wrist, pressing a kiss to her palm. You terrify me in ways Gianni never could, he confessed. She let her thumb graze his lower lip. Is it the feelings or the vulnerability? Both, but mostly the idea I can't control either. She took a breath, summoning courage. Love isn't a knife, Dante. You don't wield it. You let it sit in your palm and hope it doesn't cut. His eyes softened. Then I'll learn. After breakfast, Elena retreated to the guest suite to call her mother. Dante waited in the hall, giving her privacy, but staying within earshot. Mrs. Carter answered on the second ring, voice warm with relief. Elena, I saw news footage, police at some downtown building. Are you safe? Yes, Mom. I'm at a friend's place, long story. She glanced at Dante's silhouette. I'll explain when I visit. You sound different, her mother murmured, older. Just tired, I promise I'm okay. They spoke of Sunday lunch, of hospice donations Mrs. Carter wanted to make in Mr. Moreland's memory. Elena agreed to help organize the paperwork. When she ended the call, she found Dante waiting, gratitude simmering behind his eyes. Thank you for not mentioning me, he said, and she'll meet you when things are boring. May take decades, he deadpanned. She kissed his cheek and went to find a hairbrush. 2 hours later, the private elevator chimed. Matteo entered first, scanning corners though every guard had been vetted. Behind him, Luca navigated a wheelchair, insisting he could walk but relenting because his surgeon threatened to staple him to the seat. His face was pale, but his eyes shone with mischievous warmth. A nurse pushed the chair, smiling. Elena stood frozen in the foyer doorway. Luca's gaze locked on her, and a grin split his face. "There's my angel." Tears welled before she could speak. She hurried forward, kneeling beside the chair. Luca grabbed her hand, squeezing with surprising strength. "You look different standing up," he joked, voice still scratchy from trauma. Less blurry. "And you look alive." She tried to laugh, but her voice cracked. Luca glanced at Dante, then back. "You saved me. Again last night, from what Matteo tells me. Franco's nose is crooked." He winked. "That was your brother," Elena said, glancing at Dante. He flushed under the praise. Luca sighed theatrically. "Always stealing my spotlight." Dante crouched, resting a hand on Luca's shoulder. "You are the spotlight. And you finally look happy, big brother." Luca's gaze flicked between them. "About time." A housekeeper guided the nurse toward a guest suite prepared for Luca's recovery. Luca demanded a tour later. Dante promised. Luca rolled away, leaving Dante and Elena alone by the windows overlooking the river. "He's stronger than I remember," Elena said, wiping a cheek. "He draws strength from stubbornness. It runs in the family." Dante brushed her temple with a knuckle. "Thank you for giving him hope." "He gave me some too." Matteo returned, laptop under his arm. "Status update. Roncado properties in the city are deserted. Our investment division confirms a wire transfer out of their front company accounts. Gianni's bleeding money." Dante nodded. "Let him flee. We hold our ground." His eyes met Elena's. "We have other grounds to tend." Matteo hesitated. "One more thing." He produced a small velvet box and handed it to Dante discreetly. "Found in your father's vault during cleanup last year. You never opened it." With a nod to Elena, he withdrew. Dante weighed the box, fingers tense. He kept nothing sentimental. "I assumed it was jewelry for some mistress." He snapped the clasp. Inside lay a single key, antique brass, ornate bow etched with swirling vines. "What does it open?" Elena asked. "I don't know." He turned the key over. Tiny script ran along one edge. "Misericordia. Mercy." Elena closed his fingers around it. "Maybe your father hid something good. Maybe some doors stay locked until the right hands find them." Dante stared at the object as if it might transform. Finally, he set it on the console table, exhaling. "Later. I have something else for you." He pulled a modern keycard from his pocket. Sleek, embossed with the penthouse's crest. He extended it delicately. "This place feels empty without you," he said. "It's yours if you want it." Elena accepted the card, weighing its heft. She walked to the balcony doors, opened them, and tossed the key card into the open air. It tumbled in sunlight, catching a glint before vanishing toward the river below. Dante's breath caught. She turned. "Doors are invitations, not cages. If I belong here, I don't need a key." Shock melted into a grin that crinkled his eyes. Before he could move, she crossed the room, grasped his lapel, and kissed him. He laughed against her mouth, low and delighted. Matteo reappeared, saw them, and retreated quietly, shaking his head with fond exasperation. They pulled apart only when Luca hollered from down the hall. "Is brunch happening, or do I have to fake another cardiac arrest?" Dante chuckled. "He takes after me." Elena swatted his shoulder. "You had lived that line at age 5? I masterminded a playground takeover." "Brunch?" Luca called again, banging something metal against the doorframe for effect. Elena laughed. "Let's feed your patient." Dante offered his arm. She linked hers through it, and together they walked toward the kitchen, footsteps sinking. Morning light spilled across polished floors as if eager to burn away shadows. Luca's appetite proved equal parts miracle and mayhem. Within minutes he abandoned the wheelchair. bracing himself against the island to reach an untouched plate of pancetta. The nurse objected. Luca flashed a devilish grin that could outshine every hospital regimen in the city. Dante tried to feign authority, but his brother waved him off. Bed rest means resting in the room with the best food, Luca declared, biting into crispy bacon. Elena watched Dante roll his eyes, an expression that lived somewhere between exasperation and adoration. She joined Luca opposite the island, sliding a bowl of berries toward him. "Protein and vitamins," she said, "a saint and a drill sergeant." Luca obeyed, popping raspberries dramatically into his mouth. "Your halo's still crooked." She chose a stool. "After last night, it's probably singed too." Luca's gaze softened. "Matteo told me you faced Franco alone." "I wasn't alone. Dante was inches away." "Still." Luca studied her. "You saved me twice now. Maybe it's my turn. Anything you need, say the word." Dante, leaning nearby, stilled. Elena met Luca's earnest eyes. "I need you to heal. That's enough." Footsteps approached. Matteo returned, carrying a newspaper folded under one arm and a small covered tray. He set the tray before Elena. "Chef's special," he said, "blueberry waffles with mascarpone." She blinked. "Your chef is amazing." Matteo shrugged. "I told him someone needed comfort food." Luca nudged Dante. "See? I'm not the only one who eats sweets for therapy." Dante sighed. "Far be it from me to deny therapeutic waffles." He cut a corner from Elena's plate, earning mock outrage. She laughed, feeling threads of normalcy weave into the morning light. While they ate, Matteo briefed everyone. City police concluded last night's incident was an attempted robbery by a rogue criminal cell. No mention of Mafia lines. They accepted our surveillance package and seized Franco under medical guard. "Johnny will abandon him," Dante said, voice flat. "Franco already offered intel for leniency," Matteo continued. "Names, routes, overseas bank accounts. He's terrified you'll send angels darker than him." Dante's mouth twitched. "Let him talk. Information is oxygen." Luca sipped orange juice, still pale but alert. "So the war's really over?" "For now," Matteo said. "Gianni's losses and pending indictments make retaliation unlikely." Elena exhaled the breath she'd been holding. Dante, sensing her release, slid a hand across her back in quiet reassurance. Breakfast meandered into late morning. Luca entertained them with exaggerated tales of hallucinations in the ICU, nurses sprouting wings, Dante singing opera. Each story grew more ridiculous. Each laugh loosened something inside them all, shaking dust from grief. Eventually, the nurse insisted on rest. Dante guided Luca toward a sunny guest room outfitted with medical-grade equipment discreetly hidden behind sleek cabinetry. Elena followed, fluffing pillows while Dante adjusted an IV flush. Luca gripped her wrist before she left. "I remember everything," he whispered. "Pain, fear, your hands stopping the bleeding. I'll spend my life repaying that." She squeezed his fingers. "Then live it well, that's payment enough." He nodded, eyes misty. Dante pulled the sheet higher, brushing Luca's hair from his forehead, an intimate gesture that spoke of nights spent shielding his little brother from nightmares. Outside, the loft had transformed. Cleanup crews replaced broken glass, swapped bullet-gnawed panels. Security personnel dismantled temporary barricades. The tower sighed under the return to order. Elena and Dante retreated to the balcony. The earlier drama, now distant memory. The river sparkled beneath midday sun. Tour boats left gentle wakes like white stitches across blue fabric. A gull circled, crying once before veering north. Dante leaned against the railing. "You threw away a very expensive keycard." She grinned. "Buy another building, you can afford it." He shook his head, amused. Then his face turned earnest. "I meant the offer. You have a home here if you want it. Or we'll find one that feels less like iron and glass." She traced the line of his forearm, the healed scar running near his elbow. "Home isn't walls, It's the people inside. She paused, heart thudding. Would you ever leave this city? His brows lifted. Permanently? Not tomorrow, but someday. Maybe a house by the sea where Luca can finish recovering without bodyguards pacing the hall. A wistful smile chased across his features. I have property on Sicily's north coast. Abandoned vineyard. Needs life. Then maybe that's our key, she said, nodding to the antique brass still resting on the console by the window. Unlock something old. Make it new. He considered, hope flickering. And your mother? Flights exist, Elena laughed. Though she'll complain about salt in her hair. He stroked her cheek, thumb finding a faint bruise. She'll see a kinder version of me by then. She'll see a man who loves her daughter, that's enough. Elena peered into his eyes. Would you meet her? Lunch on Sunday? Tension shadowed his face. She'll know what I am. She'll know who you are. Leave the past at the door, bring flowers, answer her questions. Honesty is less frightening than rumor. He inhaled slowly. For you, yes. They fell quiet, letting the promise settle. Below, the city's midday symphony, horns, shouts, distant jackhammers, felt oddly comforting, proof the world spun regardless of last night's violence. Dante straightened as though making an internal decision. Come with me. He led her back inside, past the piano room to a rarely used study lined with dusty ledgers. In one corner sat a vintage record player. He flipped through vinyl sleeves until he found one pressed in Italy decades earlier. Ballads sung in Sicilian dialect. My mother's favorite album, he said, lowering the needle. Warm static crackled. Then soft guitar chords spilled into the air, joined by a woman's smoky alto. The music smelled like olive groves and sunset. Dante offered his hand. Elena accepted, letting him draw her into a slow sway. His palm rested at her waist, her head cushioned against his shoulder. They moved in small circles, shoes whispering over polished hardwood. Memories he'd shared on the roof surfaced in whispers, threading through the melody. Elena closed her eyes, letting the song uphold them. Halfway through he murmured, "This voice raised us, I almost forgot its sound." She smiled. She'd be proud of her sons. I hope so. He kissed the crown of her head. She valued mercy more than power. I lost that lesson until you reminded me. They danced through the record's final notes. When silence descended, he didn't release her immediately. Instead, he rested his forehead against hers. I have another confession, he said quietly. She arched a brow. At this rate, I should start a ledger. The day I first saw you wasn't the alley, he admitted. I'd visited Luca at Memorial a week earlier. You were comforting a crying child, singing off-key to distract him while a doctor set his broken arm. You never saw me, but something in your laugh cut through months of rage. I thought, if people like her still exist, maybe I'm not beyond saving. Her heart squeezed. Why didn't you speak to me then? Blood on my hands, vengeance in my eyes, I feared you'd see the devil and run. It took fate and bullets to push us together. She cupped his face. Fate has strange bedside manners. A knock interrupted. Matteo stepped in, clearing his throat. Guest at the lobby desk claims relation to Elena. She's small, polite, and carrying a large casserole. Elena's eyes widened. Mom? Dante's composure cracked. Now? Matteo nodded. She insisted you'd forget to eat vegetables. Security cleared her. No weapons, just a recipe for lasagna. Elena's nerves tangled with amusement. I guess Sunday lunch came early. Dante exhaled. Then let's meet her together. He offered his arm. She looped hers through, heart pounding. They took the private elevator to the lobby. Mrs. Carter waited beside a fountain, holding a covered Pyrex dish and a tote of Tupperware. She wore navy slacks and a floral blouse, gray streaks in her clipped hair. Her worried expression eased when she spotted her daughter. Elena. She set the casserole on a bench and rushed forward. They embraced, relief shaking them both. Mrs. Carter drew back, studying Elena's face for bruises. Then her attention snapped to Dante. She straightened, eyes narrowing. "You must be the friend." Dante managed a respectful half-bow. "Dante Marino, ma'am." "Marino." She tested the name's weight. "I did some reading." Elena's pulse skittered. Dante nodded. "Then you know I'm trying to be better than my reputation." Mrs. Carter's gaze flicked to Elena, checking for silent pleas, then back. Trying counts, but actions count more. She offered her hand. Dante shook it, gentle grip. She lifted the casserole. "I expect both of you to eat. Stress burns calories." Dante accepted the dish as if it were fragile treasure. "Thank you. My chef will jealously request the recipe." "He can write me." She turned to Elena. "You look brighter." "Life's complicated," Elena said, "but good." Mrs. Carter hugged her again. "Complicated can be good?" She patted Dante's arm. "If you hurt her, I'll sell this recipe to your enemies." Dante almost laughed but turned it into a solemn nod. "Understood." Matteo escorted them back up. In the penthouse kitchen, Mrs. Carter took immediate charge, instructing staff to preheat ovens, plating salad with decisive flair. Luca rolled in, eyes widening. "Is that garlic I smell?" "It's lunch," Mrs. Carter answered, handing him a carrot stick. "Vegetables first." Luca accepted, grinning. "You do realize I was shot, not malnourished." "Vitamin A heals, young man." Elena watched, warmth flooding her chest. Her mother's presence filled the cavernous space with normalcy. The clang of utensils, the scold over too much salt. Dante hovered, eager to impress, following directions with soldierly obedience. He fetched basil, grated parmesan, even attempted small talk about her tomato garden. Mrs. Carter gave him a scrutinizing glance. "City soil is nothing compared to backyard earth, but your heart's in the right place." Elena stifled a laugh. Dante flashed a grateful smile. They gathered around the oversized dining table. Elena, Dante, Luca, Matteo, Mrs. Carter, and two staff who'd become de facto family overnight. They passed dishes, shared stories. Luca's plan to write a memoir titled How Not to Die. Matteo's admission he once dreamed of being a cinematographer. Mrs. Carter's tale of burning her first pot roast at 19. Halfway through dessert, tiramisu from the chef and an apple crumble from Mrs. Carter, Luca tapped a fork against his glass. "Toast," he declared. Everyone quieted. To Elena, for saving stubborn men who thought they couldn't be saved. To Dante, for proving devils can learn mercy. To Matteo, for keeping bullets aimed the right direction. And to Lasagna, for healing every wound it touches. Laughter followed the clinking glasses. Elena's eyes glistened. Dante's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. When lunch finished, Mrs. Carter excused herself to freshen up. Luca dozed in his chair, satisfied and medicated. Matteo retreated to coordinate security for Sunday's discreet worship service to honor the fallen guards. Elena and Dante stood on the balcony again, afternoon sun warming their backs. The river shimmered gold. Seagulls swooped, carried by thermals. "We made it," Elena said softly. Dante wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. Not to the end, to the beginning. He pulled the antique key from his pocket, dangling it between them. Sicily. Vineyard. Vineyards need caretakers. And caretakers need purpose, she replied. She took the key, held it up to catch sunlight. Brass blazed, etching misericordia into their vision. She slipped it into her necklace chain, letting it rest over her heart. "Someday," she promised, "but tonight let's just watch the river." They stood in silence, sharing the sweep of wind and water. Light slanted lower, gilding skyscrapers, turning windows to tiny suns. Elena leaned back against him, heartbeat syncing with his steady drum. The city below bustled, life roared on, but above it all they carved a pocket of stillness. An ordinary miracle wrought from violence and mercy. Dante kissed her hair. Even angels fall, he whispered. She turned, rising on her toes to kiss him. But mine didn't fall alone, she murmured against his lips. Far below, waves lapped the stone embankment. The discarded keycard bobbed once, caught the last shred of sun, then sank, vanishing beneath the glittering surface as two silhouettes melded into one against the brightening dusk.